Sechus Kiddushin Daf Nun Vez contains one Mishnah and two or two and a half primary sugyas. First, the Gemara is going to wrap up the sugya of Kiddushin She'en Misurim L'Bia, Machlokes Abaye and Rava, and we'll actually give a psak in that sugya. Then we'll go back to our last Mishnah, where we will learn four halachas from the Mishnah that are not explicitly what the Mishnah meant to say, but we can learn them from the Mishnah. One of them will be about using stolen property for Kiddushin. We'll get into the sugya of using stolen property for Kiddushin at length. We'll get to our next Mishnah, which introduces the topic of using various types of hektish or kaddish materials for Kiddushin, whether that works or not. So first, the Gemara brings its final proof in the sugya of Kiddushin She'en Misurim L'Bia. It's a Machlokes Abaye and Rava. If a marriage has to be able to lead to a mutter bia, can there be tefisas Kiddushin in a situation where you can never end up doing a bia because of the circumstances, not because of a direct isser, but because of a suffix that exists? So the Gemara's proof is from a brayso brought by Taviyumi, who says if there are two men, one has 5 sons, one has 5 daughters, and they say one of your sons is mekudeshes to one of my daughters is not clear which is to which. So the halacha is that all 5 girls require a get from all 5 men, because any one of them may be mekudeshes to any one of the other ones, and we don't know who it is, and therefore they are chal. Now, the problem is that this is Kiddushin She'en Misurim L'Bia, because no one could possibly have a bia with any of these women, because they each might be the sister of the one that he's mekudesh to. So why then is a get required according to Rava, who holds Kiddushin She'en Misurim L'Bia is not a valid Kiddushin? So the Gemara says, don't tell me like you told me in the last few rayas that I brought, that in the beginning they knew who it was and then they forgot, because it clearly says one of them is mekudesh to one of them. So in the beginning it wasn't clear which is to which. So therefore, the Gemara concludes that this is a good proof. It's a proof against Rava, and this is one of the 6 machlokes on Abaye and Rava where the halacha is clearly gepaskan like Abaye, summed up by the acronym Yal Kagam. This is the kuf of Yal Kagam, Kiddushin She'en Misurim L'Bia. All right, now the Gemara refers back to the Mishnah, where we had seen that the Mishnah brought a story where a man was mekadesh 5 women at once. He took a basket of shmita fruit that belonged to them, and he gave it to one of them as a shliach, and was mekadesh all of them. So the Gemara says that from this Mishnah, the way it phrases the story, you can have 4 halachas we learn out of here, and Rav only learned 3 halachas out of here. What are the 4 halachas? First of all, you can do Kiddushin with shmita fruit. You don't say that it's hefker, or that it's only meant for eating and not for Kiddushin. You're allowed to use it for shmita fruit, because once you pick it up, once you collect it from the yard, you are kained and it's yours. And you see that because he was mekadesh with the shmita fruit. You also see that you cannot use Kiddushin, you cannot do Kiddushin with stolen property. It does not work, even if the stolen property is from the woman you bring mekadesh. There's more of a reason to think that it should work, because the fact that she accepted it shows that she doesn't mind, that she was meichel the theft. But still, no, it doesn't work. And you see that from the fact that had this not been shmita fruit, the fact that he took their property would have been invalid. It's only because it was shmita fruit in addition to being theirs. And since it was theirs, it had to be shmita fruit. The third halacha is you see that a woman can be a shliach for Kiddushin for another woman, even in a situation where they're becoming co-wives and they are therefore opposing each other. And those are the 3 halachas that Rav had. The 4th halacha that Rav did not have is you see from here Kiddushin She'en Misurim L'Bia. What about Kiddushin She'en Misurim L'Bia? So there was a machlokes Abaye and Rava what you see from here. Each one proved their own halacha from here. According to Rav, you proved that it's not a Kiddushin, because the 2 of these 5 women were sisters, and the Kiddushin was not chal. And Rav learns that he was only, and Rava learns he was only mekadesh one of the 2. Abaye learns he was mekadesh both of them, but had he been mekadesh only one, it would be good. Now, why did Rav not bring this 4th halacha? Because Rav didn't know which one to go like Abaye or like Rav. He had a suffix with the halacha was like, and therefore he had a suffix which way to learn this. Okay, now, having mentioned the halacha of being mekadesh with stolen property, the Gemara goes deeper into that sugya. The Gemara says that Reb Zera went up to Eretz Yisrael, and he said this over to Reb Yochanan, that we see from here that you can't be mekadesh with stolen property. He said the name of Rav, and Reb Yochanan expressed surprise that Rav said that. So Gemara says what? That means that Reb Yochanan holds you could be mekadesh with stolen things, but we know that Reb Yochanan holds that stolen property does not belong to you, so you should not be able to be mekadesh with it. You see that because he said that if something is stolen from the owner, neither the owner nor the thief can be mekadesh it. The owner can't be mekadesh it because you have to have it in your possession, and he doesn't. And the thief can't be mekadesh it because it's not his, and you can't be mekadesh something that's not yours. So you see, he holds stolen property; it doesn't become yours when you steal it, and therefore you can't use it for Kiddushin. So why is he expressing surprise? So Gemara says no, he does hold that way. He didn't think Rav held that way. He's expressing surprise that Rav held like him. And then there's a kasha on Rav's halacha from a brisa. We have a brisa that says that if somebody is mekadesh with gezel, chamos, or geneva, three types of theft. Gezel is where you steal it on threat. Chamos is where you steal it by force, but you pay for it. And geneva is where you steal it by sneak. Now, in either of these, and the brisa continues and says, or if you grabbed the seller out of her hand and gave it to her and said, "You're mekudesh to me with this," in all of these, the halacha is she is mekudeshes. So the Gemara says, you see clearly that it is Kiddushin with stolen things. So how could Rav paskin that Kiddushin with stolen things is no good? So the Gemara says, no, here we're talking about where it was stolen from her. It was her property. And the reason that it works is because she accepted it and therefore shows that she was a meichel the theft. And once you're meichel a theft, it becomes the property of the thief. So the Gemara is going to ask soon the obvious kasha, which is that Rav said that it's no good even in that case. But first, the Gemara asks, well, the fourth case here is that he grabbed it out of her hand. That's where it was hers then. That means that the first three is where it wasn't grabbed out of her hand. It was therefore stolen from someone else. So the Gemara says, no, the Mishnah is explaining itself. Three types of theft, like for example, if he grabbed it from her hand. And therefore it's all talking about where it was stolen from her. Now the Gemara says, now the kasha is that Rav said that even in a case where it's her property that it was stolen, it's still not mekudesha, so it's still a stira. So my answer is no. There's two types of situations where it's hers. One is where they had been discussing a shidduch beforehand, and she had already agreed, and we know that she was willing to marry him. There, even though he grabs it from her hand, since it works because we know that she's agreeable because they discussed it. If it's not being discussed, then there's no reason to assume that she accepted it or that she was meichel what he did. All right, now the Gemara brings a few incidents. The Gemara says there was a woman who was washing her feet in a large bowl of water, and a man came along and grabbed a coin, a zuz, from another man and threw it to her and said, "Be mekadesh to me with this." So they came to Rava, and Rava said, "There's no one who holds like of Shimon's halacha that a standard gzela has yish of the owner, that automatically when you see somebody steal your things and you know you can't do anything about it, is an automatic yish, and yish allows the thief to be koine it." So Rava says we don't hold that way, and there's no one who holds that way, and therefore there's no possibility that this Kiddushin works. He was mekadesh something that doesn't belong to him. Next story is where there was an aris, a sharecropper who was working on someone's land, and he took a handful of onions and he gave it to a woman who was mekadesh with that, but he didn't have a right to take the onions. It hadn't been divided; it wasn't his, so it was technically stolen. So again, they came to Rava, and Rava said to the sharecropper, "Who was meichel to you? Who allowed you to take the onions?" And therefore, he was saying that it was not mekudeshes, at least l'chumra. And the Gemara comments that this is only because it was a handful of onions. Had it been a bundle of onions, it would be okay, because that's how the sharecropper and the landowner usually divide it. I take a bundle, you take a bundle. So he would have a right to say, I took this bundle, now you go take a bundle. What's the difference, one bundle or the other bundle? It belongs to him because he took the bundle. Next story is there was somebody who was a beer maker. He used to make date beer from the dates that somebody owned, and he took the leftover of the dates after you make the beer. You could still make another round of beer from it if you squeeze it extra hard, or whatever you do to get another type of drink out of it. So he made that, and he was mekadesh a woman with that. And of course, it wasn't his; it wasn't allowed to do that. But then he found a master, the owner of the date, and he said, "Why don't you take sharper ones? There are higher quality dates out there," which would imply that he was agreeable and he was allowing him to take it. So the question is, does that mean that she is mekudeshes? Rava's psak was, we assume that he wasn't serious. He did not mean that he should take higher quality ones. He didn't want him to take it at all. And the reason that we assume that is because most likely he was embarrassed for him to say, "Hey, why'd you steal my stuff?" But really he did not want it. Now, how do we know that? So Rava said, because there is a halacha where somebody says, "Hey, why don't you take the better ones?" But it's only said by truma. That's where somebody takes truma for someone else from that person's produce, unbeknownst to him. And there the halacha is that if he says, "Hey, why don't you take the better ones?" we assume that he means it. Other than that, we would not. And that's because why do you have a right to take this person's things? Why should he agree to that? Truma, he has to give Truma anyway. So it's Truma stuff anyway. He's not really losing. But other than that, we would not assume it. Now, to support this, the Gemara quotes the Brisa. Brisa says that if somebody takes Truma for somebody else from that person's property without his knowledge, is it Truma or not? So it depends if that person views it as theft or not. How are you supposed to know if he views it as theft or not? So if he added onto it, for sure he's happy about it and he doesn't view it as theft, and the Truma is good. If he doesn't add onto it, there's another thing he may have done. He may have said, hey, why don't you take the better ones? Now, how do you know if he means it or if he's being sarcastic? So if there are no better ones, he's being sarcastic and he doesn't mean it, and therefore the Truma is no good. If he has better ones, then we assume that he meant it seriously, and therefore the Truma is good. So Rava's point is, again, it's only by Truma where he anyway has to give stuff away, not by here where it's just straight up taking something that he didn't have to give at all. Okay, we're now moving to the next Mishnah, which discusses various type of hektish, of Kiddusha things, and what's the halacha if you're Mekadesh with them. So first of all, a Kayin who has a part of Karbonis cannot be Mekadesh with them, whether it's Kachim, high-level Karbonis, like a Chatas or an Eila, or lower-level Karbonis, that Kiddushin is not Chal. Now, if he uses Meiser Sheni, which is produce that's supposed to be brought to Yerushalayim and redeemed there, so that's Machlekes, Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Yehuda. And Machlekes centers on whether it was B'shogig or B'mezid, whether he knew it was Meiser Sheni and he was intending to use that or not. So according to Rabbi Meir, either one is no good. Rabbi Meir holds that Meiser belongs to Gavaya, that is, it belongs to Shemayim, it doesn't belong to the one who's bringing it. According to Rabbi Yehuda, B'shogig is no good, B'mezid is good because it's his and he can decide to do what he wants. It's B'shogig, then he didn't intend to use it. Now, next, third halacha is if he uses hektish. This is also Machlekes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, and here they have inverted opinions. Rabbi Meir holds mezid is kiddush and shogeg is not kiddush, and Rabbi Yehuda holds shogeg is kiddush and mezid is not kiddush. We now begin the Gemara. The Gemara first focuses on the halacha that kachim kalim, we said, do not belong to the kahanim, and you can't be mekadesh with them. So the Gemara asks, there's an opinion of Rabbi Saglili that kachim kalim do belong to their owners, and that there is gzeres kasav, that there is me'ila on them, even though they belong to their owners. The Brisa says, B'Shem is to include kachim kalim. The reason you need a limud for that is because kachim kalim do belong to their owners. You would think that there is no me'ila on them, so you need the pasuk to tell me that there is me'ila. But you see from the Rabbi Saglili that kachim kalim do belong to their owners. You should be able to use it for Kiddushin then. Why does the Mishnah say that Kahanim you can't use it for Kiddushin? For Kiddushin, that would seem to imply that this Mishnah doesn't go like Rabbi Saglili. So says Gemara, no, this would fit with Rabbi Saglili. Rabbi Saglili was talking about the carbon while it's alive and those who own it. Here we're talking about the Kahanim after the shechita of the carbon. There it is given to the Kahanim by Gavaya, by Shulchan Gavaya, and therefore it doesn't belong to them. And even Rabbi Saglili would agree to that. And you could see that that's true because the Mishnah clearly says Bechelkai, that it was divided, his portion. His portion meaning what was given to him, but not something which he owns. The Gemara now brings an incident which we've had before Mesachas Nazir, which is relevant to this halacha. Before we had it as far as another halacha. So we have a Brisa that says that after the P'tira of Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda told his Talmidim not to allow Rabbi Meir's Talmidim into his shir. And he said those Talmidim of Rabbi Meir are not looking to learn, they're just looking to start up and to shlag us up in halacha. And therefore we shouldn't allow them in, they're troublemakers. But Sumchus, who's one of the Talmidim of Rabbi Meir, he pushed his way into the shir of Rabbi Yehuda, and he spoke up and he said, Rabbi Meir taught us that somebody who was a kohen who's mekadesh with his chelik of karbanis, whether kachim or kachim kalim, the Kiddushin is no good. Just like we've seen in our Mishnah here. So the Brisa there records that Rabbi Yehuda was upset, and he said, I told you not to allow them in because they're just troublemakers and they're just looking to start up with us. This is obviously not a real halacha, because how could a woman possibly get Kiddushin from Karbonis? Karbonis can't leave the Azara, and a woman is not allowed into the Azara. So it could never happen. So Rabbi Yossi then said, they'll say like this, they'll say, Rabbi Meir, he died. Rabbi Yehuda is upset. If Rabbi Yossi will be quiet, they'll say, now Rabbi Yossi is quiet, so what's going to be left with the Torah? So therefore I have to speak up. And he spoke up and he said there's many different ways that a woman could be Makabel Karbanos Kiddushin. First of all, her father could be Makabel for her. Second of all, she could make a shliach. Third of all, she could force her way into the Azara, even if she's not allowed in there. What are you going to do if she marches in and then somebody gives her Kiddushin there? You have to still know what halacha is, even if she's not supposed to be there. So what then is the halacha? So we have a brisa. Rabbi Yehuda says Mikudeshes, and Rabbi Yossi says not Mikudeshes. It says Rabbi Yechanan, they both learn out of the pasuk that says V'zeh yeh lecha mikashe kadashim min ha'esh. So the Torah calls these karbanos lecha. It's yours. Rabbi Yehuda says that means that it's yours. You can do with it whatever you want. It belongs to you. You could even use it for kiddushin. Rabbi Yossi says it's called the min ha'esh. It's compared to the eish, just like the eish is only to destroy it, to eat it. You're also only allowed to eat it. You can't do anything else with it. Now, what happened with this halachically? Says Rav Yechanan, they voted and they paskin that it is not kiddushin, and Rav says there was no resolution. The machlokes still remains. Now, the Gemara is going to try to resolve it. We'll see that on the next daf.